Is your bookish beach bum diplomat, Darren, and this is Another Way. And in this show, Another Way, I try to show another way to think about things, and today we're going to talk about, the title of today's show is Gaming Trump's Three-Dimensional Chess with Iran. And I'll use my mimetic theory and game theory to explain the significance of his tremendous success with Iran. Not only is Trump playing three-dimensional chess when everybody else is playing two-dimensional checkers, he's playing a kind of four-dimensional geopolitics, which involves mimetic theory. I believe I have found the Rosetta Stone to decode Trump's thinking on foreign policy, and I'm going to diagram it out for you here on the whiteboard today. The secret to it all, I'm convinced, is what I believe to be the new discipline of nonviolence known as mimetic theory. Now, mimetic theory draws for its inspiration from the nonviolent philosophies of the practices of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Jesus Christ, and throws in a healthy dose of karma, Confucius, Khalil Gibran, Ronald Reagan's Star Wars, and Angelo Codevilla's peace prescriptions. It sees as deeply as Shakespeare and Dostoevsky and reveals truths hidden deeply since the foundation of the world. Science, think about it this way, science is constantly moving back the horizon of our human understanding. There's always just new scientific discoveries of technology and what have you are constantly happening. But mimetic theory is a massive expansion of our knowledge of humans themselves. About a year ago, I fell backwards into mimetic theory, a discipline discovered and developed by René Girard. I began reading deeply into it, into the source material, but also into the 54-book series that I have come to learn that was helped to be brought out, sponsored by J.D. Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel. And I didn't realize this until it was about 20 books into mimetic theory did I realize that he was the sponsor. He believed so strongly in mimetic theory as the new discipline that he helped sponsor this series of 54 books. And now, of these 54 books, only about a dozen of them in any way address directly international relations and violence amongst nations. But getting off track here, it has been the greatest intellectual adventure of my lifetime because it has revealed to me a whole other layer of truth about all of the other books that I've read. Everything else has just been building the foundation to the House of Wisdom or its first few stories, but mimetic theory is the penthouse suite, and it is an amazing place from which to see the events of the world. Russell Kirk, who I think is one of the wisest men who've ever lived, he says that even the wisest man of the time is relatively foolish. We're all just mental midgets standing on the shoulders of giants, but it's because we're standing on their shoulders that we can occasionally see farther or catch a glimpse of truth in a deeper, wider way. And that's why I call this show Another Way. Thanks for watching. Yada, yada, yada. About 10 books into the series, I realized Vice President Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel, believed so strongly in mimetic theory that he sponsored the very book series that I was reading. So I began to look for mimetic theory's influence on Trump's second term, in which Vance and Thiel's bros have an influence that seemingly was non-existent during Trump's first term. And I now see it constantly. I see the influence of mimetic theory. And you should know that I am a strong critic of Trump on a lot of things that he's done. So I'm very excited about being able to rise to salute him in the way that he's handling international politics and geopolitics. The encounter with mimetic theory is life-changing, and I suspect that is precisely what happened to Trump during his hiatus, 4-year hiatus from the Oval Office. And I suspect that discovery is why he chose J.D. Vance. Maybe J.D. Vance was able to prevail on Trump. Hey, this is the future. This is the way we achieve peace. And I'll bet mimetic theory is working behind the scenes now in every bit of strategy at the White House and at the State Department and Departments of Defense. Like I say, of the 54 books, only about a dozen of them could be said to be addressing international relations directly. And one of the authors in particular seems to me to be the one that has divined and is then mining the vein of gold that mimetic theory has to offer in the mountain of international relations and nuclear deterrence. And he may very well have written the handbook to the second Trump term, or at least he has the decoder ring to his policy here in Iran on nuclear weapons and their deterrence. And that book is, it's around here somewhere. I've been reading it for the last week. It is The War That Must Not Occur by Jean-Pierre Dupuy. Jean-Pierre Dupuy. And Jean-Pierre wrote, actually interesting enough, the first book by him I read was his little book on economics. And it blew me away. Thinking outside the box, and really fantastic work in regards to economic theory. But he has written also on catastrophes and how to think about catastrophes. And so he's thinking very carefully about nuclear war as a thing in the future for which we need to prepare.